Let's use the humble blackberry to make blackberry wine. Hi, I'm Charles, and welcome to DIY Fermentation, your site for doing fermentation on a shoestring budget. Of course, as always, if you like what you see here, please click on the subscribe button, and I will try and do one of these every week. This is what we're using to make this wine. We've got 4 pounds of blackberries. You can use either fresh or frozen. We've got about 1 gallon of water, 4 pounds of sugar, 1 lemon, packaged wine yeast, peptic enzyme. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Straining bag is optional. Something to ferment it in, primary fermentation. A demijohn, carboy, jug. Use your own word that makes you happy. Airlock and also a hydrometer. All right, first thing we need to do is that we need to rinse off these blackberries. Get in there. If you see any leaves or twigs or stems or whatever, it doesn't look like a blackberry, now would be a good time to, what have we here? Something like that. All right, good enough. Back. Pour that in there. Oh, they look good. Now then, we've been boiling that gallon of water earlier, and all I want to do at this point is just pour in enough. Just pour in enough to cover the berries. And we're gonna let that sit until the temperature comes down a bit, quite a bit. Room temperature would be nice. And then we'll mash up the berries and start the process of putting them in the fermenter. Okay, now that the temperature's come down a bit, it's still pretty warm. But I think now would be a good time to go ahead and first add all of that sugar. The warm juice is going to help dissolve it. And 2, we're probably going to mash up the berries a bit. Let me zoom in just a little bit so we can see what's going on. And may as well just dump it all in there. Alright. And just go ahead and dissolve it in there. Helps to have a nice good size pan that you can do all this in. Alright. Now I think we're just going to mash up a couple of these berries just to help the process out a little bit. Now, if the berries aren't mashed completely, that's no big deal. Everything is still going to work. The end result is going to be blackberry wine. But if you got a minute and you don't mind going through the effort, and you still got a potato masher, not a potato ricer, not a food processor, not a blender, not a stick blender, and certainly not your feet, and just go ahead and mash these berries up any way you can. Back of a spoon, whatever you got, that will get the job done. Go for it. All right, I think that is quite enough of that. Now all we have to do is go ahead and let it cool down just a bit more. You know, now that our blackberries have come down to room temperature, or It's a little warm, but it's cool enough. We can go ahead and juice our lemon. The lemon is acting as our acid blend. If you've got acid blend, then please, by all means, go ahead and use it. But for those of us who are trying to keep it as simple as possible, then go ahead and juice that bad boy. And let's just go ahead and pour this in. Our blackberries. Making sure we strain out any seeds. Which, if you're using a straining bag like I am, I'm going to. It's not going to be that big of an issue. But if you're not using a straining bag, then yeah, you want to try and do your best to keep those seeds out of there. Give that a little stir. Now then, once again, if you're not using a straining bag, if you don't have one, it's no big deal. It just won't be as clean of a cleanup later on. But if you are, you go ahead and get this process started. All right. We're going to tie this off. By the way, this is a 1 gallon straining bag. If you're looking for a straining bag, I would strongly suggest getting a 5 gallon straining bag, or at least a 3 gallon straining bag if you can find it. Okay, it's in there. That's that. Next thing we want to do, wash up here a little bit. Now, if you're using peptic enzyme, we can go ahead and put that in now. If you're not using a peptic enzyme, you can go ahead and pitch your yeast. But since I am using a peptic enzyme, what's left of my peptic enzyme, in fact, I don't even need to measure it because I'm like running out. Enough for this batch. I can just go ahead and sprinkle that in. Time for a new supply. That and some more yeast. Okay. Where's my spoon? Because I want to give this a stir. Incorporate that in there. All right. All we have to do now at this point is just put the lid on and just give that 12 hours to do its thing. After that, then we can pitch our yeast. We have a 1/4 teaspoon of yeast that we're going to be using. And as always in my wines, just going to sprinkle this out around as much as possible. Put the cap back on. And for the most part, that is going to be that. Every day for the next 3 days, we're going to go ahead and just give it a stir. Make sure that all the blackberry pulp is being fully incorporated. We'll let the pulp stay in the mixture for a good 7 days, and then we'll go ahead and rack it into our secondary carboy. I do have 2 observations I need to make about this recipe. After taking my original gravity reading, I ended up with a gravity reading of 1.152, which is pretty high. I think the correction that I'm going to make there is that instead of using 4 pounds of sugar, 3 pounds of sugar would have been more ideal. If this thing goes to dry at 1.152, it's looking at a potential ABV of about 20%. Now, yeah, I like my wine a bit on the strong side, but 20%, that's kind of strong. I can handle it because, you know, I'm a man, but 20% is a bit high. The other observation is that when adding the sugar, instead of just dumping it all in there, I should have dumped in half, and they made adjustments based on the gravity readings that I was going to get at each step, and then simply adding additional sugar till I got to a point where I would have been more comfortable with. I mean, I can handle the 1.152. I mean, hey. But I'm just saying, if you're making this at home, you might want to start with 3 pounds of sugar, and you might want to start taking your gravity readings at even somewhat less than that, so that the wine is going to end up being where you like it. Beyond that, give this a daily stir for the next 3 days. Make sure everything is incorporated. Put it in the carboy in about a week. 3 months minimum, 6 months probably. This wine will be ready to drink. So there we go.